Hey, that new Retroid handheld looks pretty cool. Have you seen it? Bro, just get a Steam Deck. I'm thinking about picking up that new Silk Song game on my Switch. Everyone says it's really good. Maybe just get a Steam Deck. Do you have any threes? Yeah, but like, just get a Steam Deck. Hey, I have this itchy mole on my back that's getting bigger. I wonder if I should go see a doctor. Huh, just get a Steam Deck. Hey, I'm going on a trip in a week. What should I get for my trip? You should just get a Steam Deck. You just got a Steam Deck. Yeah. Yeah, man. Steam Deck, Steam Deck, Steam Deck, Steam Deck. Awesome. Which one of us is the real TechDweeb again? Hey there, how's it going? I'm TechDweeb, welcome. Thanks for clicking on the video today. Every time I review a new handheld, the comments show up. If it's cheaper than a Steam Deck, people will say, just spend more and get a Steam Deck. If it costs the same as a Steam Deck, they'll say, just get a Steam Deck. If it costs more, you don't need that, just get a Steam Deck. Basically, lots of people really want you to just get a Steam Deck. And you want to know, should you? Should you really just get a Steam Deck? Well, I have the answer right here. Hang on. All right, here it is. Actually, you know what? That answer sucks. It's so vague and unsatisfying. Here's the real answer. Why did I fold this up? I don't know. Okay, here's the answer. There are like a literal bajillion Steam Deck videos on YouTube. I made a bunch of them myself. Videos of tips and tricks, how to tweak it, the best games to play, how to worship it as your new handheld overlord. Retro Game Corps made a video on this topic. Other people made videos about this. Your grandma probably made one. And yet, every time I show off another handheld, I get the same comment. Just get a Steam Deck. Now, don't get me wrong. I love the Steam Deck. But it's not the magic answer to everything. Retro handhelds do some stuff better than the Deck does. Other PC handhelds are more expensive but more powerful. It's just not that simple. You can't just solve all your problems by just getting a Steam Deck. If that worked, I wouldn't get anxiety hives every time I go to the grocery store. Before we get into the details, let's cover why this advice exists in the first place. Why is the Deck so great? And really, it's because the Steam Deck is basically the Swiss Army knife of handhelds. If you want indie games, it runs them perfectly. If you want big modern PC games, it'll do that too, mostly. You want retro, it emulates like a champ. And if you want desktop PC stuff, yes, it can run Microsoft Excel, technically. But please don't. And then there's the ecosystem. Your Steam library, your cloud saves, Proton making Windows games just work. It's all baked in. You don't have to fiddle around with a dozen launchers or set up accounts everywhere. You log in, you play, you're happy. Unless you're me. In which case you log in and then you stare at your backlog as you question your life's choices. And the price matters. I mean, there are lots of more powerful handheld PCs, but they also cost a lot more. The Deck hits that middle ground sweet spot in terms of power and affordability, where you don't feel like you need to sell your blood to be able to afford it. I live in Canada, so we don't sell blood here. The government takes it forcefully, like a vampire, but you know what I mean. So that's why people keep saying, just get a Steam Deck. Because the Deck does a lot of things really well. The trick is, doing a lot of things well isn't always the same as doing the one thing that you care about the best. And even though the Deck can do almost everything, even heroes need a place to rest. Like me, napping in my basement laundry pile. Or, you know, your Steam Deck with a UGreen Steam Deck dock. When the storm rages on, don't leave your Deck out on its own. Your Deck needs a home, a cozy spot to hunker down. Safe and snug, where it can relax and recharge, curled up in its dock, dreaming of whatever Steam Decks dream about. This UGreen Steam Deck dock is so freaking lovely it makes all other docks look like total garbage. The adjustable stand with its super satisfying folding panels can be angled however you like for style and comfort while keeping your vent holes unobstructed so your Deck stays cool under pressure. Like you. This thing is decked out with all the features you could ever want too. We're talking 2 USB 3.2 Gen 2 ports for that ultra-fast 10 gigabit per second transfer speed goodness, connect up keyboards or mouses, or of course external drives to make your games load up super quick. This thing can project any way you'd want to, with support for 4K 60Hz and backwards compatibility with all the popular resolutions and refresh rates. If you need power, this thing has you covered because you get 100-watt power delivery here. So any Type-C gaming device charges fast. And it's super portable, so if you ever need to take it on the go, it folds down to this lovely travel-size rectangle no bigger than a Game Boy. So don't let your deck sit out on its own. Tuck it into its new home, the UGreen Steam Deck dock, by using the link in the description below. Thanks UGreen for sponsoring the video. So the deck is powerful, flexible, and overall pretty great, but depending on what you actually want to do with it, it might be a champ or a chump. And depending on what you need, this is what determines if the deck will be a good choice for you. If you really should, just get a Steam Deck. Let's start with retro games because this is where I get the most just get a Steam Deck comments. When I'm checking out a retro-focused handheld, whether it's a low-end device like an Amberlic, or a mid-range Android device like a Retroid, or a high-end handheld like an Neo or whatever, it seems that lots of people think that the deck is a better choice. And in some ways they're right, and in other ways they're not right because they're wrong. The pros of using the deck as a retro handheld is that it's a beast. The deck can more or less do anything you'd be crazy enough to throw at it. It can outpace most retro handhelds, even the highest end retro handhelds, and it can also play stuff that they can't play like Xbox or Xbox 360 or PS3. When it comes to bang for the buck performance, the deck is the champ, no question. And also if you have a Steam Deck, then hey, maybe you don't need another retro handheld because the deck's greatest strength is that it does so much different stuff. I made a video about Retro Deck and that's a great way to transform your Steam Deck into a retro handheld. But here's the thing. For emulation, performance isn't always what people want or need. Even a mid-range retro handheld like a Retroid Pocket 5 can handle almost all the GameCube and PS2 that you'd want to do, and even a good amount of Switch. And an Odin 2 Portal or most of the Neo doodads can more or less do it all, and a retro handheld will be generally smaller and lighter, more pocket-friendly. The Steam Deck is not pocket-friendly at all, unless you have big weird dumb pockets like a Dweeb. And the fact that you can get a Zazbizzle or whatever that will play everything up to Dreamcast and N64 and fit in not just your pants pocket but also your shirt pocket, hard to argue that these things are worlds apart in terms of portability and convenience. Also, the Steam Deck is big. That might be a good thing if you want a big screen, but maybe that won't be as comfy for you when it comes to gaming. I personally love these little retro handhelds for gaming on because I can game on them for longer because my weak dweeby arms don't get tuckered out as quick. I can stay up past my bedtime playing Ultima 4 on my Neo DMG for hours, and I can barely last 15 minutes with the deck if I'm playing in bed. Big is good for most PC games, but when it comes to retro games, I find I prefer smaller dedicated doodads. And also, to be completely honest with you, most retro handhelds have better controls for retro games than the deck. I don't even like playing old school retro platformers or arcade games or whatever on the Steam Deck. Retro handhelds feel better for that stuff for me. And most importantly, retro handhelds have chipsets and systems that are made for battery efficiency. These are mobile chips and they are meant to be able to be put to sleep and stay asleep for not just hours but days at a time. And you can wake them with the push of a button and be in your game in like 3 seconds. And when you're playing low power stuff, they are so good at barely touching the battery. My Neo Pocket Evo gets almost 20 hours of game time when you're playing low end stuff. The Steam Deck is among the better handheld PCs in terms of low end efficiency, but even still the deck doesn't get half the battery life of the flagship retro handheld, even at the lowest TDP setting. So when it comes to retro games, for the most part, just get a Steam Deck is kind of misleading. It is so cool that the Steam Deck can do so much emulation, but saying that it's better as a dedicated retro handheld than a Retroid or Neo or Amberlic for emulation is just not true, in my opinion. As someone who plays a lot of retro games, 99% of the time I want to play those games on a retro handheld rather than the Steam Deck. Another category is indie games. And I guess also older PC games, the low spec stuff. When it comes to that easier to run junk, the deck is actually a champ. There's a reason that I call my Steam Deck the Backlog Obliterator 5000, because it's an awesome name and I'm awesome at coming up with names. The Steam Deck is the handheld that I like to use for indie stuff. It's a perfect match. One of the deck's secret powers is battery efficiency. It's no Android retro handheld, but it's the most efficient PC handheld at low TDP. So you don't need to have that battery anxiety goblin chewing on your toes, reminding you that time is running out. That's why I love the deck for indie games. They run great, cool and quiet, and I can actually forget about the battery for a while, unlike almost any other handheld PC. Speaking of which, it's a PC, not Android or whatever. It runs your actual PC games. Thanks to Valve's work on Linux compatibility, almost everything just works. Indies feel right in handheld mode. I like playing them on my lap, on the porch, in bed, or the tub. Yeah, I like to live dangerously. And if you want to play docked, you can grab a UGreen Steam Deck dock linked in the description below, and boom, you have a home console experience too. That said, the con here is that the deck might be overkill if you really want to just play indie games on your TV or computer. Because if you have a computer of any sort, there's a good chance it can also play all that stuff, and you can get a much cheaper mini PC for even like $150 or whatever that can play most popular indie games right now. So maybe in that regard, just get a Steam Deck might be bad advice if you can make do fine without one. When it comes to AAA PC games, this one is a little more cut and dry, because with high-end PC games, most people are only interested in performance. These games can be so demanding that picking a handheld is very important if you want to hit a playable frame rate for whatever you're hoping to play. The good news is that the deck is surprisingly capable at AAA games for the price. Because the deck is the most popular handheld PC, and Steam itself is the store where most people buy their PC games, so PC game developers want their games to run well on the Steam Deck. They want that coveted Steam Deck verified badge to win the hearts and credit card info of PC gamers everywhere. So even some pretty darn nice looking and demanding brand new AAA PC games are playable and enjoyable on the Steam Deck. The deck plays stuff not just that you wouldn't expect on a handheld, but also stuff you wouldn't expect to play on a handheld that costs what the deck costs. It's kind of crazy, the bang for the buck performance that you get with the deck. However, the downside to getting a deck for AAA games is obviously going to be that the deck can really struggle with that stuff. If the game runs, it'll probably need to be running at all-out maxed out TDP, and you'll be dealing with lower battery life and heat and fan noise. And also, the Steam Deck can't hold a candle to other more expensive handheld PCs for AAA games in terms of performance. We've had a lot of advancement in the handheld PC space. Companies are competing with each other now. We have new chips every other week that keep changing the landscape, and the deck just can't keep up with some of the stuff that's out there. Bang for the buck is great, but for those that have the bucks to get whatever they want, it's not really a contest. Don't just get a Steam Deck if you want to play the latest and greatest AAA games in the best way. And finally, we have desktop mode, because yeah, the Steam Deck is a computer and you can boot it into desktop mode and use it like a computer. Some weirdos actually do this when they're away from their home. They just use their Steam Deck as their computer instead of bringing a laptop or whatever. Isn't that right, weirdo? The biggest pro here is that it's just neat. I love that the deck can do this. It's another tool in the Swiss Army knife that is the Steam Deck. The flexibility to use it as a PC and run full desktop PC apps and use a mouse and keyboard and even plug it into a monitor and just have a computer that just so happens to have a built-in controller for also playing Silksong on the toilet. Plus, by using desktop mode, you can get into the real PC gamer aspects of running desktop apps, installing mods and editing configs or whatever, and modifying the OS itself. It's just Linux, so you can install stuff to customize it to your heart's content. And you can run productivity apps like graphic design stuff or video editing stuff. I mean, it's just Linux nerd heaven, having a full desktop computer in your handheld gaming toy. And I think it's obvious, but the downside to this is that it's not a computer. It's a small 7-something inch screen and it doesn't have a keyboard, so you got to bring along your own keyboard unless you're okay with using the on-screen keyboard, which is also kind of weird. It's nowhere near as convenient as a desktop PC or even a laptop for PC tasks. And I wouldn't personally use a Steam Deck for my daily driver PC or anything. It's just limited in so many ways. So maybe getting a comparable actual PC, like a mini PC, will be a better fit for your needs than just getting a Steam Deck. I mean, it's a deeply personal thing about whether or not a Steam Deck will fill your needs, because only you know your needs. I love my deck to bits, and it's among the devices I would run into a burning building to save from the fire, along with my Miu Mini and my cat, and my commemorative 7-Eleven Big Gulp cup from 2024. I'm nuts about this thing, but I do not prefer it for everything that it can technically do. It's my indie game crushing machine, and it plays AAA games pretty good. I like using it for that. I don't like using it for retro games as much as other retro handhelds, and I don't use it as a computer unless I need to. I prefer other stuff for some of that stuff. So the just get a Steam Deck advice isn't right for me, but it may be for you. It's not right or wrong, it's just an opinion, and only you know what's right. Unless you're my mom. She always thinks she knows what's right. And spoiler, it's never a Steam Deck. I guess the thing that I want to get across is, don't be lazy. Don't say just get a Steam Deck when somebody is saying that they want an Odin 2 Portal, or when they want a mini PC, or a different handheld PC, or a Switch, or whatever else they want, because there might be good reasons why they want that instead of the deck. Or say it anyways. I can't stop you. Just like how you can't stop me from saying, I'm TechDweeb, thanks for watching, bye-bye.